So, right now we are being told there is a ceasefire in Iran, but at the same time, Donald Trump keeps shifting his position from threats of total destruction to talk of negotiations to something maybe in between. So, which one is it? Has Donald Trump gone mad, or is this deliberate confusion? Because the real question is not what is being said, but what is actually going to happen. My guest is Thierry Laurent-Pellet, a French entrepreneur and author who has lived and worked across multiple countries, including the United States and Ukraine. He has been following this situation closely from a broader geopolitical perspective. So welcome, Thierry, on this
Hello,
channel.
René. It's always a great pleasure, in fact, to reach your show. And actually, in fact, the situation is pretty hot right now. It has been quite of calming down for the last 24 hours, but we have been going through a sort of hell that made me not sleeping at night, because in regard of the behavior of Donald Trump, who is a very unpredictable kind of personage, we were just wondering what would be his next move in regard of the fact that the situation was drifting to a point he was not under control anymore. Trump has been jumping into this Israeli adventure against Iran, something that most of the US president never dare, in fact, to jump in, because they were knowing that the consequences out of it would be dire. And I am going to explain through a small experience that I have been going through several years ago. A member of my team in Ukraine was one of the most famous mathematicians there. His name was Andrei Bondarenko. And he wanted, in fact, to participate to the Olympics of Mathematics, which is a competition organized every year all over the places. And that year, it was taking place in Odessa. That was in July 2006. So basically, I've been accompanying my team. And of course, I was attending, in fact, the results. Who has been ending in the first three positions? First, Russia. Second, China. And third, Iran. As surprising as it is, I have an understanding that this country was producing a level of physician and mathematician of an extremely high level. So basically, as this is a very ancient civilization, extremely well structured, with level of universities that allows them, in fact, to develop high-level technologies, I would have been assuming that those guys able to send satellites to build massive rockets and developing nuclear industry has a capacity, in fact, to defend themselves regarding the type of technologies that they were developing. And actually, the proof of it is that the famous F-35, that is supposed to be a stealthy plane, has been damaged by the technology that has been developed by Iranian. And it was supposed to be invisible to the radar. So basically,
Yes.
if you guys have been able, in fact, to shut down this kind of plane, which is costing $180 million, you can imagine, in fact, the intellect that is developed in the country. On top of it, when you are looking at the profile of most of the politicians that are running a country, you would be amazed. Their president is oncologist. He's professor in the University of Medicine. The Minister of Foreign Affairs came out from one of the most famous university in UK for international relations. So we are dealing with people that are extremely smart. And in regard of the way they have been handling the conflict, we can understand that this is not the kind of country you want to mess around with. And actually, the United States did not learn any lesson within their history. From Vietnam to the Korean War, to Afghanistan, to Libya, Iraq, Ukraine, they continue.
Vietnam,
which is in fact one of the biggest mess. The small little Asian guys, very skinny, facing in fact the great America. What does it tell you? It tells you that when you try to invade a country for ideological reasons, if you are not matching the person that you are in front of you, and you are, you dismiss its capacity, in fact, to retaliate, this is at that moment you are making a big mistake. Look at Afghanistan. They have been spending $2.3 trillion. What was the outcome? Those Afghan guys, the Taliban, has been kicking the American army on mopeds with AK-47. What a shame. Mm-hmm. You have the most biggest power in the world, and you have those guys with mopeds that are kicking you out. This is like, an humiliation. And yes. The United States, by following up the policy that Netanyahu has been putting together to escape lawsuit, because this is the reason of the war in Israel, between Israel and all his neighbors. He has been taking advantage of this attack on October 2023 to let go in the way that he can justify retaliations and save his ass out of lawsuits. And actually what we know from one of our guys within our secret services, Mr. Mark Eschinger, is that Netanyahu has been receiving $40 million from the Qataris to leave them financing the Hamas at a level of $400 million. So basically what we are observing with this guy is a level of corruption absolutely horrendous, to the sacrifice of its own people. So for the last 2 years, he has been wiping out completely the Gaza Strip by executing a genocide. This is how we are calling it. When you are bombing days and nights, a zone which density of population is absolutely gigantic, there's 2 million people, and you are dropping 6 times the amount of bombs that has been used during the Second World War, you can imagine the consequences it might have. Today, we don't know the numbers, we don't know the figures, but we can extrapolate. If you are comparing Dresden city bombed during the Second World War at the end of the war, and you see the casualties, that was about 250,000 people that's been dying, and you project it, in fact, to the Gaza Strip, you can imagine, in fact, the disaster. On top of it, he decided, in fact, to set up this crazy, great Israel project by trying to project himself apart in Egypt, in Jordania, in Syria, and so on. It's a small country. It's 9 million people, 9.6. Actually, right now, 7.2, because there is 2.4 million people that's been running away due to the bombing provided by Iran. People want stability. They want to work in an environment where they can bring their kids at school, they can go to work, they can do business. They don't want to live under the bombs, And this is what's happening. This is like an exodus that Israel is knowing right now, to the point that their GDP has been dropping by 50%. And we don't know what are going to be the results at the end of 2026 after what has been happening for the last months. I do believe that the economy of Israel is just on the knees. And the population start to be really tired of it. Very, very tired that Netanyahu has been losing his mind and now is trying to eradicate completely the south of Beirut, justifying to eliminate the Hezbollah and making killings at a level that we haven't been seeing since the Second World War. This is completely a shame. This is a shame. What this guy is doing is just executing a sort of Shoah. You know, this is disgusting. What is very surprising is that Trump has been jumping in a bandwagon in this terrible adventure. Was he manipulated? Yes. Was he under control? Because of the story of Epstein, there are a lot of questions that can be asked. And actually, I am not the only guy that is asking. You have Colonel McGregor, you have Colonel Davis, you have Tucker Carlson, you have Candace Owens. There is a lots of people that are just questioning the reason of this terrible mess. So basically, we can also looking forward in a free band billiard kind of hit. I am going to explain what I am in mind because that might be possible. What are the consequences out of what has been happening? Iran has been retaliating by hitting the interest of America within, in fact, all the countries in the Gulf, in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Oman, in Emirates, United Arabs, in Saudi Arabia. They were hitting oil and gas infrastructure. They were hitting companies working for America. They were hitting banks and so on. The consequences out of it is that a lot of those countries are now constrained on the financial point of view. If you look at UAE with Dubai, their airport is welcoming, if I remember, it's 190 million people every year. Those people are spending about 5,000 euro per week. The port of Dubai is welcoming about 18.6 million containers. A container sitting in a port costs $140 per day. So you can imagine when you have 62 containers coming in the port and sitting there without the capacity, in fact, to exit. Dubai is knowing losses that are absolutely stratospheric. It's $180 million per day. You time that by 40 and you see the amount of money that they have been losing. We talk about tens of billions of dollars. Actually, the consequences out of it are dire because most of the business people that were looking after fiscal haven and stability environments, what they are doing now, they're like, whoa, is it going to stop? When it is going to stop? People are scared. They're like, I don't want to die because I am going to receive a missile and that is going to destroy my assets. They are moving to Asia. 300,000 people have been leaving already, definitively. They have been moving their assets, they have been moving their bank accounts, everything gone. You think they're going to come back? I don't think so. I don't think so. This is a full losses. And it's a losses of reputation. I mean, you think that people are going to install business in this environment? No, they are not. They want to feel secure. They want to have like a good environment and not struggle about what is going to happen next and the day after. They want to run their operation, their business. There are consequences out of this. The reputation, the loss of business, and due to the fact that UAE we are realizing that in a very close future, their reserve in oil and gas would be completely dried. They had, in fact, to move their business. And this business that they have been constituting is gone. What will remain out of this desert? In Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, which is particular, we will talk about this country a little bit on the side, because it seems that on the platform in the Gulf, there is a big fight between two gorillas, Saudi Arabia and, of course, Iran. One is constituted of about 50 million people, the second one, 95. So there is a discrepancy of population, which is like an intellectual potential. Saudi Arabia is buying literally this intellectual potential. When Iran is building it, it's different. So basically, both of them, they represent number one and number two resources in oil. Therefore, a major financial potential. One is developing because it's backed up by the United States, and the second one is under sanction. But if the sanctions are falling, you can imagine, in fact, the growth that will be booming Tehran and the entire country. And this is something that certainly Saudi Arabia don't want, because they will be shadowed by Iran. So basically, either the United States have been thinking that if all assets are destroyed, those countries will not be able, in fact, to finance by subsidiary their population, because this is the case in Qatar, for example. Every citizen is receiving $80,000 per year without doing anything, because the government is paying for the subsidiary, and they are buying a political peace. What if, in fact, this subsidiary is not falling anymore? What is going to happen? How they are going to finance, in fact, the functioning of the state? So basically, this can become potential of instability. Does United States were thinking that to get a hold of the major platform producing the biggest amount of oil and gas in the world could be under their own control? That can be envisioned. All those monarchy would be kicked out. They will be proposing the rebuilding, the refinancing, with, as a collateral, the capacity of managing the oil and gas resources. How many oil and gas resources are in the world? The major one. I'm talking about really the major one. You have Russia, you have the Gulf, and you have United States. If United States is controlling the two biggest one, theirs and the Gulf, on top of it with the Venezuelan one, which is kind of particular because the quality of the oil there is such that it's costing a lot to refine. But still, they will be securing their energy sources for the next 100 years. How about Europe, who has absolutely no leverage? That would be absolutely disastrous. So basically, that might be one of the hypotheses that I am putting together. Dropping all the monarchies through this conflict, because most of the financial aspect that allows, in fact, to maintain a sort of political peace within those countries is not on the table anymore. But there is still, in fact, Saudi Arabia, which is particular because this is a symbol of the Muslim religion. You cannot touch the Mecca. And I am just wondering if MBS, Ben Salman, haven't been a sort of witness waiting for his neighbor to be completely wiped out to emerge as the big gorilla within, in fact, the Arabic Peninsula. Dubai was putting a lot of shade on Jeddah. If Dubai is dying on a financial point of view, then Jeddah would be raising out of the woods. That might be one of the hypotheses, either one or the second one. But the plan, so basically, if we are looking at the position of Israel here, it is like the bully kid in the court, in the school court, that is bothering everybody because there is like the big Qaid that is pushing him, in fact, to bother everybody to take advantage of the situation. But at the end of the story, Israel is going to lose big. One, because it's losing its population. Second, because its economy is completely collapsing. Third of all, because the international community start to point a finger to them, saying, now you have to stop. Enough. So they are losing on three ways. And on top of it, Trump, associated to the bully guy, would be pointed out, because then he will look like the guy that has been helping an unstable individual that is screwing up the entire region. So basically, Trump now is taking some distances, and he needed, in fact, to find a way to exit this crisis. Because on the financial point of view, if you look at the stage of the United States right now, this is very critical moment. We are seeing a market that represents 230% of the GDP. Never in the history of the United States this is happening. The level of debt has been quadrupling since 2008. And the last year and a half of Trump mandate, the speed at which he's increasing the debt is 4 times. This is 40%. So he has been increasing the debt by almost $4.5 trillion in 18 months. This is crazy. You have the private equity with most of the biggest funds in the world that are freezing the redemptions procedure. KKR, Apollo, BlackRock, Blackstone, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, UBS, and so on. They are all saying to their investors, no, you will not be able, in fact, to withdraw your fund. What does it mean? It means that those guys, they have been investing in assets that do not have any return on investment. And now they are constrained by one, the Security Exchange Commission that is putting a lot of pressure with what we call margin calls, and also because of liquidity. They might have, in fact, exposure to the market. They need, in fact, to get rid of certain assets. And unfortunately, as they do not have the liquidity, if in fact the investors, they are asking for reimbursement, it's not possible. They don't have the money. We are seeing the consumers, which level of bankruptcy right now is increasing significantly on the credit card, on the car loans, on the student loan, with students that are exiting the best universities without the capacity, in fact, to find a job. Kids coming out of Harvard and MIT not being able to find a job after 9 months. This is serious. Because most of the company, they are leveraging the artificial intelligence technology, and they are just realizing that whatsoever a rookie would be able to do, they will be, this task would be achieved by a software that is not costing anything in terms of taxes. Of course, this is asking for investment and so on. But if you look at the return on investments, if you are smart enough to leverage the capacity of this technology, then you can be extremely, profitable. Amazon has been firing 16,000 people. UPS has been firing 35,000 people, and so on. So basically, the job market is constrained, it's shrinking, and this is announcing a major crisis. This is exactly what has been happening in 2008, in 2001, during, in fact, the internet bubble. I've been witnessing all those crises. I saw, because I have a certain age, it was disastrous. So basically, Trump knows about that. And he knows also that the consumers, they are constrained by the inflation that is particularly high. If oil is at the $100 price, then this is going to crash the economy. Nevertheless, we are not still at 140, but we were taking this course. Right before his threat on the Iranian government, I saw the WTI at $117. I saw the Brent as 123. So basically, we were going straight forward to this course and would have been triggering one of the biggest crises, which is looming. Actually, it's going to happen because the negotiations that are put together right now are not flying very high. Look at what has been happening 24 hours after the declaration of a ceasefire for the bombing of the United States. Israel continued to bomb Beirut south, and Iran has been hitting on Kuwait. Is it actually Iran that has been hitting on Kuwait? We don't know. It can be also a provocation that has been generated by Israel. They have been doing the same thing a while ago. When they have been hitting on Saudi Arabia, the Iranian has been saying, no, we're sorry, it's not us. They did the same thing a little bit everywhere. So basically, Israel tried to poison, in fact, the negotiation because they do not have interest that the United States will be dropping them. Because being facing Iran alone, it's another story. We saw the bombing that has been occurring in Tel Aviv and Haifa. This is significant. And actually, the Iranians who are very smart. They are waiting for United States and Israel to deplete all their warehouse of missiles. And now they are retaliating because they know that they cannot answer. So basically, the level of destruction that is occurring is really, really serious. So basically, Trump, if the barrel of oil is between 80 and 100, he might manage the situation, but this is constraining the consumer. If it goes beyond and during a certain time, the US economy is going to collapse. On top of it, in the context during which United States will be confronted by the running out of their debt, a major chunk of their debt, and we talk about $9.5 trillion. How are they going to do that? I'm just wondering, and I'm going to explain. People now, all over the world, they are rushing, in fact, to secure the energy necessary to run their economy. So basically, they jump on contract, and to do so, what they need to do, either they have enough reserve in their banks, in their central banks, to buy enough oil and gas, or they will have, in fact, to get rid of their bonds. And generally, this is US bonds. So the consequences out of it is that when they are selling the bonds, they are asking for dollars in exchange to buy, in fact, the oil that is provided by United States or the one that are still providing in the Gulf, meaning Saudi Arabia. But the M2 money that has been flowing for the last 10 years is not at the right level to provide the cash necessary to buy assets. So basically, there is a constraint in cash necessary, in fact, to acquire the energy to run economies all over the world. But there is a second effect that is even worse. When the guys are selling the bonds, what are the consequences? Value of the bond is dropping significantly. So basically, the ones that are keeping their assets are seeing the principal of the asset dropping in a dramatic manner. And the interest rates are skyrocketing. If the interest rates are skyrocketing, what are the consequences? United States needs, in fact, to pay more interest on the debt. So basically, in such a complex system, trying to hit a nest of wasp the way that Trump has been doing it is extremely dangerous for himself. So basically, the worst enemy of Trump is not Iran, it is himself, because he hasn't been realizing at which point the consequences will be dire for United States. And that is the reason why he wants to stop the conflict by trying any means possible, meaning putting the Tunis on the ground in front of Iran, that has been running a major diplomatic success. And actually, on top of it, those people who are making fun of him when he was getting aggressive, like insulting them and treating them as fools and crazy dude and whatsoever, what they were doing, just making fun of him, saying, sorry, we are not going to reopen the Hormuz Strait because we have been losing the key. And it's really funny, you know. And on top of it, the maneuver that they have been putting together is significant of the psychology of those people. That we are going to make belts of a human individual around our infrastructure. So if you are hitting them, you are going to be pointed out as a war criminal. And Trump is very sensitive to that. He wants his Nobel Prize of Peace. If he's just dropping bombs and on hundreds of civilians, people are going to look at America saying, you are like a rogue state, and we are not going to follow you because you're completely crazy dude.
Yeah, that's confusing because I'm not sure if Trump is aware that they are already hitting civilian targets all the time. Most of I think the targets are civilian infrastructure, civilian buildings. So a lot of people speculate that maybe he's not getting accurate information about the war. He seems to think that they are making some great military success when in fact they are just hitting mostly civilian targets at this point.
Don't worry. He's watching CNN. He's watching Fox News. He must know. If he doesn't, it means that this guy is completely drunk. What is worrying is that he has been frightening a state of total eradication of civilization. And this is very serious, because this means that he had in mind to use nuclear weapons. And this entire story of weapon has been backfiring very seriously. The opposition right now in the US is looking at him and said, look, this guy is nuts. We need to impeach him. His MAGA base is looking at him and say, whoa, what are you doing here? You are telling us that you have been promising to stop any war. You are starting one. And on top of it, you want to eradicate an entire country with a nuclear bomb? Are you completely out of your mind? He has been losing the election because on top of it, he was obliged to accept every point that Iran has been putting on the table.
Yes.
the tollway to pass through Hormuz under their control. The fact that they should not hit on Lebanon, they will not hit the Hezbollah. They will continue, in fact, to work on their nuclear energy industry, and so on. So basically, this guy is looking like a fool. He is looking like a fool. The situation was a kind of status quo before this war, and today it's becoming 10 times worse. What he has been gaining out of this? Zero. He made the
But
situation.
I also have to ask you one thing about this ceasefire. You could call actually the peace deal list. I'm not sure how to call it. The 10-point list of Iran, because I wasn't able to find a confirmation that the US is willing to work from this list. I just saw it on the social media, but I'm not sure if it's really happening.
Well, if they have been deciding a ceasefire on each side, it means that the US part was obliged to agree on top of it. It doesn't mean that they are going to follow up on the point. Perhaps they are just trying to gain some time to regroup, to refill, in fact, their armada, and so on. You don't know. And actually, they are kind of using this mechanism very often. During the first bombing a few months ago, what happens? They were just trying to negotiate in the middle of negotiation. What they did is hitting. So basically, perhaps they are trying to snake around, in fact, to gain some time, and then trying to come back in a better position. On top of it, look at what has been happening during this F-15 how do you say operation, which has been a terrible mess, because in fact they were trying to hide another operation to put their hands on all the nuclear assets. And this has been ending into a real disaster. So basically tried to rebound by saying, look how powerful, how super good we are. We have been saving our pilot, but he's hiding, in fact, the failure of the operation. And on top of it, he's showing that he's able, in fact, to negotiate by putting a lot of pressure, by insulting, in fact, the Iranian guys. But what Iranian guys are doing, they say, you need to accept all the points. So at the end of the story, he's looking like a fool. Look at what the European Union is doing, by the way, besides all this stunt. They are not following up on the Trump stunt. They do not want to back him up because he has been abandoning them regarding the story of Ukraine. But you cannot have two fronts in the same time. It's impossible. If you do that, you're going to be crushed. And as a European, they want to continue this conflict between Ukraine and Russia. They say, let's drop Trump. Let's make him looking like a fool. He is going to lose the midterm election. And right after that, if the Dems, they are taking over the two chambers, the Senate and the Congress, we will be back up, in fact, to rearm the Ukrainians, and we will go at war against Russia. Because the United States will be realigning itself to re-strengthen NATO. So basically, we need, in fact, to be very careful what is going on here. We need to be very careful.
But I think Trump's problem is that he assumes everyone is stupid. Because I can't see that, first of all, the Iranians would not understand that the United States cannot be trusted. when they say that they want a ceasefire, when in fact the United States already did the same maneuver. They said they want to negotiate with Iran, and then they killed the Ayatollah. So of course Iran will anticipate that United States will double cross them. And secondly, it's so how do you say? I think so arrogant from Trump to assume that while he keeps insulting the NATO countries and threatens to basically take over Greenland from Denmark, he also assumes that everyone will just accept this. I think there's something, either he's playing some kind of very elaborate geopolitical chess or he's just losing it.
Well, there is a little bit of everything in this story, because he's not alone. He has a team that is, in fact, that he's consulting, that is advising, and so on. But at the end of the story, he is making the move. And in regard of his behavior, if you prefer, I would say the following. Trump is a sort of exacerbations of what the United States are about. They are about the control of every resources. They don't care about their partners. They are using them to squeeze them. Look at what has been happening with the story of Ukraine war. They have been provoking Vladimir Putin, and we have the record. On the 17th of February 2022, this is the Ukrainians that has been hitting first on Lugansk and Donetsk. Vladimir Putin didn't have any other choice than to respond, because it was becoming a political risk. The sanction that has been falling in the hands of the European Union's deputies were already packaged, and they have been falling on the right day of the SVO operation. The right day. I have friends who are deputies, and they are within, in fact, the Security Commission of the European Union. And they told me it was unbelievable. The day after we have been receiving loads of sanctions to apply to Russia, it was like those guys have been working for almost 2 years to come out with such a so well-structured kind of attack, because this is an economic attack on Russia. What does it mean? It means this plan was established a way before. But who is paying right now for this plan? European Union is paying for that. The capital has been flowing out of European Union. Energy is gone because we don't have cheap gases. The companies, they have been running away in China and United States. So what remain out of Europe? Rotten politicians and corrupted that did not have even the intelligence to understand what was brewing in the pot. And actually, I've been calling several of them, telling them what was the plan of the RAND Institute. Did they react? No. They were just following following the flow. It was like a pack of wolves that were just chasing after a lamb, without realizing that they were just eating themselves. And this is going to backfire very seriously, because the European economy right now is in a stage that is very dangerous, very, very dangerous. France is a ruined country, completely ruined. How they are going to face, in fact, this oil choke? It's impossible. They don't have the means, they don't have the cash flow, they don't have the capacity, in fact, to reestablish supply chain, and so on. And Trump tells them, oh, if you want oil, you need, in fact, to establish your own supply chain. It's your problem. It's not mine. That was the deal here. That was the deal. The problem is an economy is a very complex process. And if you are pushing too much on one side, you are going to lose on the other side. Story of the oil. People are obliged, in fact, to sell their bonds, which is hitting America. You see, you cannot avoid, in fact, when you are hitting in the candy jar with the wrist, you are going to break, in fact, the candy jar, and all the candies are going to spread away. So basically, it was a wrong move. It was a very wrong move. But now, to find a way to settle down the situation, trust me, this is going to be very complex. Look, Iran has been saying, no, we are not in Islamabad yet. For one reason, they are expecting to see what is going to be the next move of Israel, which has been breaking, in fact, the ceasefire already. And yes. I am sure tomorrow they are supposed to meet. If this is not J.D. Vance that is sitting in front of the Iranian, it is not going to fly, because Witkoff and Kushner are not trusted anymore. They have been betraying, in fact, their words during the last negotiation. So basically, those guys, if they are sitting in front of Iranian leaders, they're going to be kicked out. Period. Mm-hmm. So do I believe that this entire story is going to settle down easily? I don't think so. I don't think so. But the economical consequences that we are going to face are going to be serious. I've been checking 1 hour ago what was the oil price. Wow, it's coming back to $100. Huh? Mm-hmm. It's been dropping by $17 yesterday. It was $93. Right now it's 99.85. It's going to come back. It's going to continue. It's going to be a mess. What is surprising is that for a moment, the financial markets has been reacting very positively yesterday with a major jump of 1,300 points. Today it continues. But if tomorrow everything is just collapsing, I don't know what is going to be the outcome. It's not looking good. It is absolutely not looking good. Because on top of it, Trump has been losing face. That is pretty much what we can do, and what we can say today.
Mm-hmm. So, one final question. I know we have to soon wrap this up, but do you think that it's possible that some kind of peace can be made with the Iranian list of demands soon, or is this just going to escalate and drag on further into the future?
The only answer is in the hands of Netanyahu. If Netanyahu is not following up and continue whatsoever he has been starting since the beginning, it is not going to fly. Iran is very strict on their requirement. And actually, in fact, they have been putting a lot of pressure today, saying we are closing the Hormuz Straits again. So basically, it's constraining all the economies in the world. And this because he has been bombing Beirut. Everything is going to depend on the relationship between Netanyahu and Trump. If Trump is hitting on the table saying, now you stop, and he's putting together a political process to make sure that Netanyahu is neutralized, then he will be winning. But if he doesn't do that, and if he leave him the flexibility of doing whatsoever he want to do, it is going to continue. What is going to happen tomorrow? I doubt that this process will be smooth and we will go easy, because we don't know what Netanyahu is going to do next. The guy is unpredictable. And he said it explicitly. He said, I'm sorry, but I continue my operation. Wow. The guy is just telling you, whatever you decide, my friend Trump, I don't care. I continue. In this condition, how do you want Iran to trust? And what would be the reaction if Netanyahu escalating this conflict with a stiffer answer of Iran? Is Trump going to follow up to crush Iran? You don't know. You don't know. Tomorrow we will have an answer. Either the delegation of Iran is coming to Islamabad or they don't. We will be fixed.
Yes. All right. So I think that's about it. So thank you a lot for joining on this channel again. You are a great guest, and it's always a pleasure to hear you speak. And hopefully we will see you again.
It was a great pleasure, Johnny. Have a good evening.
Good evening. Bye-bye. And bye.